For thousands of years, immersing in a mikveh was essential to the laws of family purity. This mitzvah is one of the fundamental doctrines of Jewish faith and family purity. For thousands of years, Jewish couples who have committed themselves to this ancient law have felt that their marriage was strengthened and enhanced through this holy observance. The mitzvah of mikveh is the core of the Jewish family. It's what maintains the foundation of the Jewish people. In those waters, a woman is able to experience a renewal, a very unique moment of special closeness to God, where she could pray for herself, for her husband and family, and for all of Am Yisrael. When a woman immerses in the mikveh, she's connecting herself to the source of life, to the world of purity and kedusha. She's connecting herself to God in a spiritual way that transcends her physicality. And this precious mitzvah of upholding the purity of the Jewish family is entrusted to the woman. Every woman should feel singular and distinct. This is your mitzvah, and God chose you to be the one to bear the torch of kedusha that you pass on through those waters and to the generations that follow. Because so many women, unfortunately, do not understand the importance of this mitzvah, because they don't have the proper knowledge that would enable them to maintain and uphold it, many Jewish women neglect it. For this reason, we have decided to put together this series in the merit of the young couple, Miriam and Ari, who are getting married. We hope and pray that women who take the time to learn about this precious mitzvah and they take it upon themselves to visit the waters of the mikveh will not only merit to enhance their life and their marriage, but let it stand as a zechut for this young couple, that they should experience happiness, togetherness, and that they should be protected. Let it be a zechut for this young couple that they live with shalom bayit and merit to see generations upon generations of children whom they brought into the world through this beautiful mitzvah, and that they witness miracles, blessings, and yeshuot in their life.
We hope this series will also stand as a merit to all of the singles in Am Yisrael who are searching for their zivug. May they be zeicha to fulfill the mitzvah of mikveh speedily.
Baruchot habaot, ladies, and thank you so much for joining us in this mikveh series that I hope will enhance your life and bring tremendous bracha. We will begin with the first class, which is the essence of the nida's uncleanness. According to the world of science and biology, the menstrual flow contains with it many poisonous toxins. The first to research the composition of the menstrual blood flow from a scientific perspective was Professor and Dr. David Macht, I think that's how, Macht, of Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. In a full-scale study that took place in France, they discovered that the poisonous toxin known as menotoxin exists in the menstrual blood flow, and it affected plant life and vegetation, interestingly. And in addition to traces of menotoxin in the menstrual blood flow, they found other poisonous substances as well, if you could believe that. And then Dr. Belashik, a doctor in the 1920s who was a very popular physician, and he received flowers from his patients all the time. One day, he received one of his usual bouquets from a patient, and he asked one of his nurses to put the bouquet in some water. The nurse politely declined. So Dr. Schick asked her again, "Can you please put the flowers in the vase with the water?" But she refused to handle the flowers. So when Dr. Schick asked the nurse why she wouldn't put the flowers in the water, she explained that she was menstruating. She was in the middle of her menstrual cycle. When he asked why that mattered, she confessed that when she menstruated, she made flowers wilt to her touch. Could you believe that? So of course, Dr. Schick was intrigued by this, and he started to run a series of tests. What did he do? He gently placed flowers in water. And then he asked a menstruating woman to take another batch of flowers and put them into another vase filled with water. The flowers that were touched by Dr. Schick thrived, while the flowers that were handled by the menstruating woman wilted. Here is a picture of these flowers that wilted. And so began the study of the menstrual toxin called menotoxin, which they realized is often secreted in the sweat of a menstruating woman. And they, of course, expanded the testing beyond flowers and vegetation, where in 1979, they injected the menstrual blood, as sad as it is to hear it, but they injected it into rodents, and those rodents were dying. Then they fed the menstrual blood, they fed it to various animals, and many of those animals started to experience bleeding, and they developed edemic lesions on their body, and some animals even died. The higher the quantity of menotoxin, the more damage it inflicted. These studies were eventually published in France in Dr. B. Kai Guan's book titled Physiology and Hygiene in the Bible. But fascinatingly, the Ramban, alav shalom, already revealed these facts in his great wisdom over 900 years ago in his commentary on Sefer Vayikra. So concerning the subject of the menstrual blood flow, what does he say about it? Hu sam hamavet yamit kol bal chaim sheishte oto o yochelenu. Which means this is like a poisonous toxin. It's like a poisonous fluid. It can cause death to any living creature, whether they consume it, drink it, or eat it. In supplementary studies and research done on this subject, it was revealed that in addition to the poisonous substance in the menstrual blood flow, during her menstrual cycle, it's extremely dangerous for a man to engage in physical intimacy with a menstruating woman. A study that was done by Professor Ford of Yale University revealed that men are inflicted with inflammations of various organs and various bacteria that suddenly develop in their body, and even a type of herpes which strongly infects the man. This is incredible, ladies. So in short, many scientific researchers succeeded in discovering the divine wisdom of creation. They understood the purpose of the separation that's required during the time period of the Nida, and many of them recommended to the entire world to accustom themselves to that way of life in the same way that Jews have done so for generations. Ladies, at this point we are going to discuss and reveal the divine wisdom behind the establishment of the separation time, as well as the unification time period between a man and his wife. And we're going to discover, we'll see how this idea serves as the purpose of building a healthy relationship. So, first of all, what you have to know initially is that the separation period, separating from each other, creates a renewed connection that's occurring between the two of you. That's number one. Secondly, a person learns to be master over his urges and desires. That's number two. Number three, both the man and the woman discover the true meaning of love. So let's discuss the first point, which is the renewed connection that occurs between the couple as a result of observing the laws of Taharat HaMishpacha. In the Gemara of Nida, the famous Tana Rabbi Meir asks, Mipnei ma amra Torah nida leshiv'a? Why did the Torah declare that a woman should be a nida for a period of 7 days? And Rabbi Meir says, Mipnei sheragil ba vekatz ba. Because the husband will grow accustomed to having her, and then eventually he will reject her. And he explains that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a woman to be in a state of tumah for 7 days, because at the end of that Gemara it states the following: Kedei sheteheh chaviva al ba'ala keshe'et knisata lachupa. You hear that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the woman to be endeared to her husband just as she was at the moment that she entered the chuppah. How beautiful is that? How romantic is that? If you think about it, Rabbi Meir, who was a great sage, he was a Tana, someone whose life was dedicated to the learning and teaching of Torah, a man whom we'd all think doesn't even consider intimacy on this level, surprises us all, and he reveals man's weakness. He tells us that the nature of a man is such that when he grows accustomed to something, he unfortunately rejects it. Therefore, this periodic avoidance of intimacy not only allows for the connection between a couple to remain stable and strong, but this time out period also provides them the ability to renew that connection every single month. So that's point number 1. Moving on to the second point, let's discuss man's mastery over his inclination and desires. The natural chemistry, that pull between a man and a woman that God embedded within creation, was created in order to facilitate the building of this world. Because without the natural pull, a man wouldn't feel a need to marry a woman, and the world would become a very desolate place. Because man has free will, he has bechira chofshit, he can easily turn this natural chemistry into the main focus of the relationship, just as we see that it's happening in the world today. Many people turn the medium, which is the intimacy, into the ikar, into the main functionality, when the opposite is true. Because in such a world where sexual interaction becomes the focal point of the relationship, a person is pretty much turning into a slave to his yetzer, to his inclination, and to his earthly desires. Therefore, in order to prevent this kind of decline in nature, HaKadosh Baruch Hu established a Torah law that in every month there's a period of separation between a husband and his wife. Why? In order for man to accustom himself to be the master over his yetzer. And in so doing, man is educating himself to understand that this natural chemistry and pull that he feels towards his partner, that is a gift from above that was given to him in order to make him a partner of God in the creation of the world. You hear that, ladies? Researchers in this day and age came to the same conclusion that our rabbis discovered centuries ago, because I'm going to quote you now an expert from a leading marital counselor. Her name is Dr. Sylvain Mamon. She's French. In one of her books, she says the following. Listen to her words. While it is true that the separation period in Jewish law seems very long, however, we should acknowledge the fact that this time of separation brings a complete harmony and balance to two opposing needs in a person. On the one hand, the separation restrains one's desires, while on the other hand, it prevents the indifference that can develop between a couple. The indifference that evolves as a result of habit and the daily routine of life. This periodic cycle of allowance and prohibition answers the precise and necessary needs of the physiology and psychology of man and woman. I want to quote you another excerpt from the Austrian neurologist and professor Viktor Frankl, who wrote the following. The fundamental aspect of man's physiological existence is not to provide his needs or to satiate his impulses and desires. Rather, it is more correct to say that the fundamental aspect of man's physiological being is to marry in order to arrive at some elevated purpose. Therefore, ladies, the Torah HaKadosha's commandment to observe the marital laws of purity expresses the greatness of mankind. How so? There are two words in a pasuk in Shir HaShirim that explains this idea. Listen to the words of Shlomo HaMelech alav hashalom. Sharerech agan hasahar al yechsar hamazeg bitnech aremat chitim suga bashoshanim. Simply put, translated, your navel is like a round basin where no mixed wine is lacking. Your belly is like a stack of wheat fenced in with roses. Suga bashoshanim means fenced in with roses. What does this mean? Because Chachamim ask, does man fence himself in with roses? And isn't it the way of man that he builds a fence around the roses that have thorns and thistles? So what does this all imply? What is Shlomo HaMelech alav hashalom teaching us? Chachamim explain that there was once a young man who was engaged and he desired to see his wedding day already. He was desperate to get married. He couldn't wait for the chuppah. Finally, the joyous day arrived. He stood under the chuppah with his beautiful kala. He put the ring on her finger and he uttered the words that made her kedosha unto him. Hareat mekudeshet li betaba'at zu kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. And then the wedding is over. They go home, both of them anxiously awaiting for the first time of being intimate. And then she tells him, Tipat dam ra'iti keshoshana aduma. I have seen a drop of blood the color of a red rose. What happened next? He immediately separated himself from her. Zeh hofech panav lekan. This one turned his face in one direction. Vezeh hofechet et paneha lekan. And she turned her face in the opposite direction. What caused this young Chatan to separate himself from her in such a quick way? What, did a spider sting him? Did a serpent bite him? What fence stood between them? The Chachamim want to know. And the rabbis answer, Ela eluhem divrei Torah. These are the words of Torah. In other words, it's amazing to discover the greatness and the ability of man. Because after such a long time period of preparing for this momentous occasion, after the beautiful and luxurious wedding, Tipat dam keshoshana aduma, a small trace of blood as red as a rose, caused this anxious young man to separate his new bride as if he was just stung by a spider. Why? Because of how much importance he places in the words of the Torah. Ela eluhem divrei haTorah. And that's the greatness of a human being. That's how much a person can master his inclination, can master his yetzer. And moving on to the third point, the discovery of real love. Ladies, true love is measured by the willingness to give and to nurture others. In general, we give to those we love. Unfortunately, in this day and age, the word love is heard too often everywhere and all the time. But interestingly, not many people have actually arrived at attaining true love. Why? Because the ta'ava, the desires, have become stronger than the purpose. And inadvertently, a woman becomes a mere need and a physical necessity. Today, people use the word love as a covering for what they really feel, which is ta'ava, desire, even lust. And then sadly, we throw the word love around and it turns into a mask that hides our true intentions, which is to take rather than to give. Ladies, this is a flawed way of thinking, and the Torah HaKadosha wishes us to separate ourselves from such a thought. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu established a period of separation and distance. During this time period, a husband is required to continue to give his wife in a manner where his giving is not dependent on anything. It becomes an ahava she'eina tluya bedavar. Translated literally, it means a love that doesn't depend or rely on anything. It doesn't rely on being intimate and physical, which means that during the time that a woman is forbidden to her husband, the husband is being given the opportunity to develop a personal, emotional, and human interaction towards her without any dependency on a sexual urge or need. The husband learns to see his wife's inner beauty, to pay attention to her feelings, to express his love for her through praises, through compliments, through his heart. This is the time where a man can discover the personal makeup of his wife, her mahut, to understand her heart, to know her strengths, her traits, her uniqueness. This is the time where he can appreciate her inner world, both physical and spiritual. And the more a man will nurture, whether through his words or his deeds, the more it's going to create and weave a very meaningful and deep love between him and his wife. Now, if we analyze it from an even deeper perspective, we discover that the proper conduct during the days of separation allows for this time period to elevate itself and reach its climax of holiness when the time period of allowance arrives. You see, when a person learns to be master over his urges and desires, over his own yetzer, he begins to understand that his natural pull, that pull that he has to his partner, was given to him only as a medium by which to continue the existence of the world. And he also understands that this abstention is meant to elevate him and his wife to a place of kiddusha that exists between them. And that can take place when he focuses on the purpose and not the medium. The purpose is the intent of fulfilling the mitzvah of Peru Urevu. The intent is important because every mitzvah has to have proper intention, has to have proper kavanot in order for the mitzvah to be elevated to the level of kedusha. And when proper kavanot are thought, then the action itself, the ma'aseh, becomes holy as well. And we see this idea imparted in Sefer Vayikra, where the laws of arayot are mentioned, which, by the way, arayot includes a nida. And interestingly, the term kedusha is used to define these acts. Listen to the pasuk. Kedoshim tehiyu ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. You shall be holy, Hashem says, because I, your God, am holy. So Rashi HaKadosh Alav HaShalom comments on this pasuk. And he says, Kol makom she'ata motze geder erva, ata motze kedusha. Wherever one finds a barrier against sexual immorality, one finds holiness. Rashi HaKadosh is telling us quite simply that separating oneself from any form of sexual immorality leads to Kedusha, especially when it concerns marital intimacy. You hear this? Because when the Yud, the letter Yud in the man's name, Ish, is combined appropriately with the letter Hey in a woman's name, Isha, then God's name is created and it's elevated. And with the proper intentions, with the proper kavanot between a husband and his wife, in that they want to bring the Shekhinah HaKedoshah, the divine presence, into their home, we find that the physical act between them is now transformed into something that's elevated and holy. You see, when a person merits to view his marital relationship as a holy act, he receives the strength to be able to withstand the prohibitions concerning the laws of Nida and Arayot. And that's what Rashi HaKadosh meant when he said that whenever one finds a barrier against sexual immorality, one finds holiness. Because when a person asks himself, how am I going to be able to withstand my temptation and to uphold all these restrictive fences and prohibitions? The answer for him will be to look at his union with his spouse and to see in it the holiness that he's creating. And when he can view his relationship as kadosh, from there he'll be able to draw the strength to uphold the fences and prohibitions.